So the last session for this event is the key takeaways and closing remarks, which we are honored by Dr. Seri Nontasud, Governor and member of Sustainability Committee, the Stock Exchange of Thailand. Dr. Seri, the floor is yours. So, good afternoon, everybody. So this is the last session on the guidance on modern slavery risks for Thai businesses, and in this webinar on modern slavery risk, so I would like to just provide you the 20 minutes summary, and we're going to cover about 6 steps or 6 key points. I would like to just reiterate the definition of modern slavery and the implication of modern slavery in Thailand and in ASEAN, and also the UN guiding principles and its importance as well. And we're going to summarize as to what are the good labor practices being implemented by the organizations today. The first one is the usage of this particular guideline and what are the next steps that we can expect. So if you take a look at the guidance, you can see that we have provided definitions about modern slavery. So the definitions are here on the left-hand side, and the graph on the right-hand side also can provide you with more understanding as well, that there are 3 components of modern slavery: forced labor, trafficking, and also slavery and slavery-like practices. These are the 3 components of modern slavery, and they are basically overlapping. It may look a bit not too complex, but one thing that I would like to just bring your attention to is that the legislations provide different definitions as to modern slavery. But of course, each of these 3 components are considered an offense under criminal law. So moving on to the next page, you can see the scale of the definition. And you can see that decent work is the fundamental rights to be provided for workers or laborers under their human rights entitlement. For example, the rights to receive fair wages, fair minimum wages, the right to say no or to reject work, or the rights to be in the safe and non-hazardous workplace. So if you take a look at this, at the top box, in the yellow box, you can see that if the worker cannot say no or reject to any particular assignment that he or she has been given, that is the sign of modern slavery and is also based on the definition here. So in terms of for Thailand, the importance of modern slavery, you can see that there are 3 components. The first one is the forced labor, trafficking, and slavery-like practices. For Thailand, we are under the scrutiny of the global communities, and from the latest report from the US, it is reported that we have we have forced labor and child labor in a number of industries, and that had been conducted consecutively as well. And we have been trying to solve that issue, I do hope that the guideline that we launched today will be able to solve the problem. In terms of human trafficking, we can see that the geography of Thailand, we are in the transition location and we are vulnerable geographically to human trafficking. And we also have the mapping provided by the government of where the human trafficking actions took place. And this is important not only for Thailand, but human rights are an international crime. So, and it also take place quite a lot in Southeast Asia as well. So in terms of the materiality that the Stock Exchange of Thailand has ranked modern slavery and human trafficking as a material issue under the ESG framework. How is it material? So if you look at the left-hand side, you can see that human trafficking is committed for so many reasons. For example, for forced labor, for forced begging, for child soldier, forced marriage. And also you can see the profits or proceeds from human trafficking on the right-hand side, that we can see that Asia Pacific ranked #1 or 34% of the countries or group of countries that benefit most from human trafficking and forced labor. So in terms of the principles that the SET used in order to develop this particular guideline launched today is the United Nations Guiding Principles on Business and Human Rights, or UNGP. And we all know that it is situated on 3 pillars, being protect, respect, and remedy in the case of human rights violation. So this particular guiding principle is not an isolated document. It is under the ecosystem of relevant standards. So I would like to just point out that one of the very important standards is the ESG standard that we're using at the moment, and also the reporting requirements, which we are following the GRI standards, that the SET is also following this particular guideline standard as well. And we have Global Compact, which is the agencies that communicate the guidelines with the countries that are member states. In terms of the SDG, or Sustainable Development Goal, it is clearly stipulated that in the goal number 7, that human rights is something that we have to, everybody, all companies, all agencies will have to prevent, and that also includes forced labor, modern slavery as well. And this is a clear goal that we try to eradicate within 2030. When speaking of which, you will now see a clearer picture as to if you are going to follow the ESG framework, you will have to take into account the modern slavery aspect as part of your policies. Because if you let modern slavery to keep on happening, you will be part of the Slavery Act and you are not following ESG principle. And so therefore we perceive modern slavery and forced labor as part of the Sustainable Development Goals and also the ESG framework. On the 4th key point, which is the good practices on modern slavery risks, I would like to summarize this by saying that for the member organizations and also our partner organizations, all of which have a very solid and robust policies and on human rights, and that also includes the National Action Plan on Human Rights and Businesses, which has been launched in 2019, and we are the first country, Thailand is the first country to launch such a report or such a guideline, and that also covers forced labor, fishing labor, and I would like to just add that we have been awarded with as the model agency for business and human rights as well. And as provided by the president of the SET, I would like to just commend him that what is happening next year comes from the policy of the SET to adjust the requirements of 56-1 report, and that strongly supports the human rights initiative. So there may be questions in terms of why is it, for example, GPF, how is GPF what is GPF role in this particular effort? So GPF, as the investor and a major investor at that, they will be the spearhead that will help us to develop the investment policy. So to simply put, GPF will not be investing in companies that they have found human rights violation or in a relation with modern slavery. And these policies are positive policies and will have the positive impact to companies as well. If the companies keep up with all these policies, GPF will be able to invest in you. But if you are not following these policies, GPF will not be investing in your company. And on the part of the 3 executives, the AAS, Thai Union, and CPF, the most important thing is to have the policy commitments. You have to be sincere, you have to be transparent, and it is very vital to have the tone from the top, from the CEOs, from the directors of the company. And if we look at the risk of recruitment, for example, some companies may not be using recruiters anymore, but they try to recruit by themselves, or they may have a code of conduct in terms of recruitment, and that is a good move as well. And it will not be applicable only to them, but also to their suppliers, to their supply chain. So the counterparts who are working with this particular company will have to comply with the code of conduct, which will be regularly audited. So for the Thai Union, we have the Sea Change policy, which is basically anti-human trafficking policies in the ocean or in the fishing industry, and that is by using the GPS technology. And one of the things that has been mentioned is the disclosure of information. And this is also a good practice that I would say that is being implemented by the organizations that are joining us today in this event. So for CEOs, for executives in listed companies, I would bring your attention to this particular guidance. It is a very important guidance that will help you in your way forward. So ESG cannot be separated, because if you are involved somehow in human trafficking, you are failing the social part of ESG, but that will also mean that you're failing the governance part of your ESG framework as well. So it is inseparable, and you have to also consider your value chain, not only yourselves, but you also have to really look at the ecosystem of your company. Who are your vendors? How well do you know them? And is there any policy being implemented by your vendors, by your counterpart, by your supply chains in terms of, inbound logistics operations, outbound logistics, marketing and sales, and also after sales service? So all of these have their own risks, and it may be involved with the risk of modern slavery, more or less. So what we're expecting to see is that all companies, whether large or small, we want you to have the awareness that you may be involved somehow in modern slavery. So it may be the direct involvement. You may have the relationship or involvement in modern slavery or forced labor. So this will be the 100% involvement, and you will be the committer or the offender in this case. But you may not be in another case is that you may not be directly involved, you may be indirectly involved. So by that, from your position, you will have to encourage your supply chains to eliminate or eradicate the act of human trafficking or modern slavery. And we also have mentioned earlier about human rights due diligence conduct. This will be the tool that you can use to inspect whether you are involved in human rights, in human trafficking. If so, how deep is your involvement? So this is a very good tool that you can use, that you can apply to your risk assessment as well, and risk management. So in terms of the guidance itself, I would like to just bring your attention to two parts. The first one is the 56-11 report, which will be enforceable next year. One of the important elements is that the KPI and KPI report. If you look at the right-hand side, you can see that in the report, we clearly stipulated that you can report based on your KPI. For example, the inspection of your suppliers based on percentage, or the inspection of relevant report, or the inspection of violations. So by having the KPI and reporting on KPI will bring about the transparency and credibility of your company, and also within the supply chains that are involved with your company as well. So second point, I would like to just, so we base our guidance on the 3 pillars of the UNGP, and we already mentioned the element of respect, the pillar of respect. So in terms of the remedy, which is the 3rd pillar, we put in the guidance as well that there has to be a grievance mechanisms in order to allow the workers to really come forward. And also you have to, if in the event that you find any violations of human rights, what is your strategies? What are the actions that you will take in order to solve that problem or address that issue? So key takeaways are already in the guidance, but I will just, now I'm going to emphasize with you that modern slavery risks exist at your company level and also at the national level as well. Secondly, it is very necessary for all companies, whether you're a big company, a small company, you have to understand what is the risk of modern slavery in your supply chain. The 3rd point is that companies have to come up with the risk area or the risk indicators. For example, if you're in the sector that have high risks, you may have to pay attention more to the risks in your sector. In Thailand, all companies are using migrant workers, more or less, and this group of migrant workers, they come with risk. They can pose the risk to your business, and you may fall under the category of using modern slavery with unknowingly so, and you have to conduct your due diligence on this. So I would just take you to this last page. that on the first point, this year we are coming to an end of 2021 and we're going forward to 2022, which is going to be a very important year for the integration of ESG into your business operation and also the disclosure of your business on the social aspect and also in terms of modern slavery as well. Second point is that smart companies, sustainable companies and resilient companies will have to come up with policies and practices that are in alignment with the ESG framework. Also, the most important people is the other directors and CEOs. They will set the tone from the top. And for C-suite, they will have to be educated. They will have to receive capacity building and training as well. Thirdly, we want this guideline to be distributed, to be published, to be used in all trainings, in all capacity building workshops that your companies are going to organize. Fourthly, as the SET is the platform for capital market, the Stock Exchange of Thailand will strengthen our ESG mandate and function. As you can see from the webinar that we organized today, that we prioritize and we are determined to uphold the ESG knowledge and framework. And next year, the Stock Exchange of Thailand will also develop and also launch the ESG metrics as well. And that will be the compilation of environmental, social, and governance data. And lastly, I would like to thank all the partnership between the Stock Exchange of Thailand and Walk Free and Fast, which brought us to the development of the guidance which is launched today. And I do hope that this kind of partnership will be developed with other counterparts as well in order to strengthen the ESG framework in Thailand. I would like to wish you that all listed companies to be successful in the integration of ESG into your business operation. Thank you.